Rolex Submariner. The Submariner isn't just a watch, it's the dive watch. Launched in 1953, it was built for underwater survival but became a fashion icon. James Bond wore one. So did Steve McQueen. It's water-resistant to 300 meters, has a unidirectional bezel, and is nearly indestructible. The black dial with luminous markers is instantly recognizable and even across the room. Collectors go crazy for vintage red sub models or rare bezels like the Kermit or Hulk. It's not just about telling time, it's about telling people you've arrived. Rolex Air King. Originally launched in the 1940s to honor RAF pilots, the Air King is Rolex's tribute to aviation history. It's one of the most affordable Rolexes, but it still packs that iconic status. The current version has bold minute markers, a green seconds hand, and an oversized crown logo. Some love it, some hate it, but it's unmistakably Rolex. Rolex Oyster Perpetual. This is Rolex's purest watch. No date, no complications, just time. The Oyster Perpetual is the foundation. The stripped-down, do-it-all daily driver. It comes in multiple sizes and bright, punchy dial colors. In 2020, the Tiffany blue version exploded on the internet and became an instant grail. It proves you don't need diamonds to shine. Rolex Sea Dweller. Take a Submariner, then go deeper. The Sea Dweller was created for deep sea divers and can survive depths up to 1,220 meters. It includes a helium escape valve, serious tech for saturation divers. It's bulkier than the Sub, but it's built like a tank. It's the Rolex for people who want utility and bragging rights. Rolex Deepsea. If the Sea Dweller is deep, the Deepsea is ridiculous. Rated to 3,900 meters, it's over-engineered for human survival. The case is so thick it could stop a bullet. James Cameron wore one during his dive to the Mariana Trench. It's not for everyone, but it's definitely for someone. And that someone probably climbs Everest before breakfast. Rolex Turn-O-Graph. Nicknamed the Thunderbird, this was the Submariner's stylish cousin. Released in the 1950s, it was one of the first Rolexes with a rotating bezel. Pilots loved it, so did the US Air Force. It lived in the Datejust family, but with sporty flair. Discontinued now, but still a vintage sleeper. Rolex Cellini. Rolex's forgotten child. The Cellini is their dress watch line. No oyster case, no sports DNA, just elegance. It's thin, round, and made for tuxedos, not toolboxes. Most people don't even know Rolex makes these, but that's what makes them interesting. If you want to be low-key different, this is it. Rolex Prince, an Art Deco throwback that doesn't get enough love. The Prince has a rectangular case and a dual dial setup, one for hours, one for seconds. It was big in the 1930s and made a modern comeback in the Cellini line. It looks like something a 1930s banker would wear while firing people with class. Rolex King Midas. Designed in the 60s, this is one of the weirdest Rolexes ever. Asymmetrical case, all gold. No crown logo on the dial. It was designed by Gerald Genta, the same guy who made the Royal Oak and Nautilus. Elvis wore it. So did Liberace. If Rolex ever went full rock star, this was it. Rolex Bubbleback. This is where it all began. The Bubbleback was Rolex's first automatic watch, launched in the 1930s. It had a chunky case back to fit the rotor movement, hence the bubble. These were the early experiments that shaped everything Rolex is today. Vintage collectors treat them like sacred artifacts. Rolex Sky Dweller. Complicated, but elegant. The Sky Dweller is Rolex's most advanced watch, featuring both a GMT function and an annual calendar. It looks like a Datejust but does way more. The month is shown with tiny windows next to each hour marker. Adjustments are made using the bezel. It's what happens when Rolex flexes its tech muscles, and does it in gold. Rolex Oyster Quartz. Yes, Rolex once made quartz watches. The Oyster Quartz debuted in the late 70s when the quartz crisis shook the watch world. It had a funky, angular case and an extremely precise in-house movement. They made less than 25,000 of them, so now they're cult classics. You either hate it or love it, but you can't ignore it. Rolex Precision. Before Oyster Perpetual became the standard, there was Precision. These were manually wound, dressy Rolexes that didn't have the waterproof Oyster case. They were small, simple, and elegant. Today, they're vintage bargains and a great way to get into Rolex without selling a kidney. Rolex Zephyr, one of the lesser-known vintage gems. The Zephyr had a unique crosshair dial and engine-turned bezel. It was a dress watch that stood out, subtle but different. Rolex doesn't make anything like it anymore, so collectors love hunting them down. Rolex TrueBeat. Rolex once tried to make a mechanical watch that ticked like a quartz. The TrueBeat had a deadbeat seconds hand. It jumped once per second instead of sweeping. It was meant for doctors who needed precise pulse readings, rare, weird, and extremely collectible today. Rolex Marconi. In the early 20th century, Rolex used different brand names. One of them was Marconi. These were rebranded Rolexes for export markets, usually found in pocket watches or early wristwatches. They're part of the company's secret past, forgotten but not gone. Rolex Unicorn. A myth turned real. The Unicorn is the only known white gold manual wind Daytona from the vintage era. For years, people thought it didn't exist until it surfaced and sold for over $5 million. One watch, one owner, one legend. Rolex Xerography, one of the rarest Rolex watches ever. Made in the 1930s, the Xerography was Rolex's first attempt at a chronograph. Less than 10 are known to exist. No one even knew it was real for a while. It's the horological version of a ghost story. Rolex Panerai. Collaboration. Back in the 30s and 40s, Rolex supplied movements and cases to Panerai for military divers. These watches were enormous, radioactive, literally they used radium, and used underwater by Italian frogmen. Technically not a Rolex-branded watch, but Rolex DNA ran through them. Rolex Q. Chronometers. These were tested at the Q Observatory and certified to the highest precision standard in the 1950s. Only a few Rolexes ever earned this certification. They're like the honor students of the Rolex family. Ultra rare, ultra accurate, and nearly unknown outside watch nerd circles. Rolex Commando. A budget-friendly, no-frills model sold in the late 60s and early 70s. It looked like an Explorer, but was much simpler. Manually wound, no date, and basic lume. Not many were made, which ironically made it valuable today. Simplicity can age well, especially when it's unexpected. Rolex Blueberry GMT. This is one of the rarest GMT master variants ever made. The blueberry bezel, entirely blue, was never publicly cataloged. Some believe they were special order pieces for military or Middle Eastern markets. Others think they were just service replacements. Either way, they're scarce, mysterious, and worth a fortune. Rolex Albino Daytona, a unicorn among Daytonas. Only a few exist, defined by their silver dial with matching silver subdials. Most Daytonas have contrasting subdials for legibility, but the Albino went minimalist. One example, owned by Eric Clapton, sold for over $1.4 million. Proof that rarity plus celebrity equals watch world meltdown. Rolex Domino's Pizza Air King. Yes, this is real. Domino's used to gift Rolex Air Kings to store managers who hit crazy sales targets. The Rolex had the Domino's logo right on the dial. It sounds like a meme, but they're real collector's items now. Capitalism meets luxury. Rolex Texas Timex. In the oil boom days, Texas businessmen flexed with solid gold day dates. The nickname Texas Timex was born, mocking how casually they wore these ultra-luxe watches. These weren't delicate wrist statements. They were everyday beaters for millionaires in cowboy boots. Rolex Stella Dial Day Date. Stella dials are bright, lacquered dials in wild colors: hot pink, green, blue, orange. They were made for Middle Eastern and Asian markets in the 1970s and flopped at the time. Now they're among the most sought-after vintage day dates in the world. The bolder, the better. Rolex Paul Newman Daytona. This is the grail, the holy grail, the one that started the hype. Paul Newman wore a specific dial variant of the Daytona, and collectors went nuts. The exotic dial has funky fonts and square markers in the subdials. His personal one sold for $17.8 million. It's the watch that made vintage collecting cool. Rolex Root Beer GMT. Brown and gold never looked this good. The Root Beer GMT has had a few versions, all with a warm copper tone color scheme. Nicknamed the Clint Eastwood because he wore one, it's flashy, nostalgic, and deeply 70s. You'll either love it or hate it, and both are fine. Rolex Meteorite Dial. Yes, this dial is made from real space rock. Rolex has used meteorite on models like the Day Date, GMT Master 2, and Daytona. The patterns are totally unique. No two are alike. It's like wearing the cosmos on your wrist. A Rolex from space, come on. Rolex Rainbow Daytona. Take a Daytona, then add a full rainbow of sapphires around the bezel, then add more sapphires for hour markers, then add diamonds on the lugs. This is the Rainbow Daytona, one of the wildest, most expensive flex watches ever. Rappers love it. Collectors chase it. Rolex barely makes any. Rolex Pearl Master. The Pearl Master is where Rolex goes full jewelry mode, gold only, often factory set with diamonds, rubies, or sapphires. It's more bracelet than watch. Made in smaller sizes, it's marketed to women, but plenty of collectors love the gem setting. Think of it as the red carpet Rolex. Rolex Hulk Submariner. Nicknamed for its green dial and green ceramic bezel, the Hulk is one of Rolex's most recognizable modern subs. It was bold, bright, and divisive when it launched, but now it's a collector favorite. Discontinued in 2020, prices skyrocketed overnight. It's the Submariner that said, "I lift." Rolex Kermit Submariner. Before the Hulk, there was the Kermit, released for the Submariner's 50th anniversary in 2003. It had a black dial with a green aluminum bezel. Not as loud as the Hulk, but more classic. Collectors love the flat 4 font on early bezels. Green means go, especially when it comes to value. Rolex Batman GMT Master 2. Released in 2013, the black and blue ceramic bezel earned this GMT the nickname Batman. It was the first Rolex to have a two-tone Cerachrome bezel. It looked futuristic, stealthy, and clean. Paired with the Oyster bracelet or Jubilee, it's become one of the most wanted GMTs ever. Rolex Batgirl GMT Master 2. Same bezel as the Batman, but on a Jubilee bracelet. Some fans call it the Batgirl, others just call it the new Batman. The Jubilee gives it more sparkle and elegance. Either way, it's a modern Rolex with superhero-level hype. And the weightless? Legendary. Rolex Pepsi GMT Master 2. This is the OG color combo, red and blue. Nicknamed Pepsi for obvious reasons, it was the original GMT look since the 1950s. It's flown across oceans and worn by astronauts. The ceramic version brought the colors back in brilliant fashion, but the heritage never left. Rolex Coke GMT Master, 2 black and red. The Coke GMT came after the Pepsi and offered a darker, bolder vibe. It's currently out of production, which only fuels the demand. People are still waiting for Rolex to revive it in ceramic. When they do, instant mayhem. Rolex Panda Daytona. This one's all about contrast. A white dial with black subdials, simple, clean, and fast. Nicknamed the Panda because of the color combo, it's become the go-to modern Daytona. Celebrities love it, watch nerds respect it. It's sporty, sharp, and timeless. Rolex Reverse Panda Daytona. Flip the Panda and you get this. Black dial, white subdials. Equally cool but with a little more edge. The contrast helps legibility and looks amazing under the light. You'll find this on both vintage and modern Daytonas. Which one's better? That's a civil war waiting to happen. Rolex John Mayer Daytona. Nicknamed after the musician who hyped it on Hodinkee, this Daytona features a green dial and yellow gold case. When Mayer called it the next sleeper hit, prices exploded. It's luxurious, colorful, and surprisingly refined. John wasn't wrong. This one rips. Rolex Ice Blue Day Date. Reserved only for platinum models, the ice blue dial is a Rolex status symbol. If you see this color, you're looking at 6 figures. It's paired with a smooth or fluted bezel, and usually a president bracelet. The combo of weight, shine, and cool tone screams power. Rolex Datejust Turn-O-Graph. Before the Submariner made rotating bezels cool, the Turn-O-Graph was already doing it in the 1950s. It lived inside the Datejust family, but with sporty roots and military use. It was issued to the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds, earning the nickname Thunderbird. It's a forgotten icon and a great entry point for vintage Rolex. Rolex 1530, a rare and awkward beauty from the 1970s. The 1530 had an angular case, integrated bracelet, and a movement that ticked like a quartz, but wasn't. Think of it as the prototype for what Rolex would later perfect. If you like oddball vintage that still flexes, this is your piece. Rolex 1630. A quartz-powered follow-up to the 1530 with the same funky 70s design. One of the earliest Oyster quartz prototypes. It looks like it belongs in a vintage car ad. Rare, weird, and one for the collectors who want something different in a sea of submariners. Rolex Masterpiece Day Date. Take a day date and turn it all the way up. That's the masterpiece. Bigger case, diamond bezels, and the ultra-luxurious Pearl Master bracelet. It's flashy by design and often overlooked because of how niche it is. If the president isn't presidential enough, the masterpiece is your answer. Rolex GMT Master Concorde. An early version of the GMT Master with a very small 24-hour hand. It was a short run and didn't catch on, but collectors love it for its rarity and odd proportions. Named after the Concorde jet for its ties to aviation. Fast, rare, and hard to land. Rolex Submariner. No date. It's not just a Submariner without a date, it's a design purist's dream. Perfect symmetry, no Cyclops bubble, and a throwback to the earliest sub references. Some argue it's the real Submariner. Simple, clean, and ready for the deep. Rolex Deepsea James Cameron. To celebrate his record-breaking dive, Rolex released this special edition Deepsea with a gradient blue to black dial. It symbolizes the ocean depths, from surface to abyss. Bold, chunky, and iconic, just like the filmmaker who inspired it. Rolex Submariner two-tone steel and gold. The two-tone sub is a love it or hate it flex. Called the bluesy when it comes with a blue dial and bezel, it's pure 80s luxury. It's not for everyone, but it's never boring. A dive watch that shows up dressed. Rolex Submariner Smurf, white gold case, blue bezel, blue dial. The Smurf is the rich cousin in the Submariner family. Released in 2008 and discontinued in 2020, it's subtle flex meets deep dive. Stealth wealth on a rubber strap. Rolex Yacht Master Rolezium. Rolezium is Rolex speak for steel and platinum. The Yacht Master debuted it, a stainless steel case paired with a platinum bezel and dial. It's cool-toned luxury and water-ready. Not quite a sub, not quite a Datejust. Something in between. Rolex Explorer 39mm. For years, the Explorer was 36mm. Then Rolex bumped it up to 39mm in 2010. Some loved the extra wrist presence. Others thought it ruined the proportions. It's now discontinued, making it a sweet spot for those who want a modern size with classic roots. Rolex Explorer 36mm. In 2021, Rolex brought the Explorer back to its 36mm size. And collectors rejoiced. It was a nod to its mountaineering roots, slimmer, more traditional, and more comfortable for smaller wrists. Sometimes going backward is the best move forward. Rolex Explorer two-tone. Also in 2021, Rolex did the unthinkable. A two-tone Explorer, gold and steel on a rugged field watch. Purists hated it, but Rolex doesn't care. They make what they want. And now it's one of the most polarizing Explorers ever. Rolex Selene Moonphase. Released in 2017, this is the only current Rolex with a moon phase complication. It's elegant, dressy, and totally different from the rest of the lineup. The moon disc is made of enamel and meteorite. Pure art on the wrist. Rolex Day Date 40. Rolex modernized the classic Day Date by increasing its size from 36mm to 40mm. It still has the same luxurious gold-only offerings, but with a thinner case and new movement. It's the President, updated for today's wrists. Rolex Day Date 36. This is the size that started it all in 1956. Still made today, it's favored by traditionalists and smaller-wristed collectors. Don't let the size fool you, this is still a heavyweight in gold. Rolex Lady Datejust. Rolex's best-selling ladies model. It takes all the DNA of the Datejust and shrinks it into a more elegant package. It comes in 26mm, 28mm, and sometimes 31mm. Paired with diamonds, mother of pearl, or classic fluted bezels, it's timeless. Rolex Yacht Master 37mm. A mid-size version of the Yacht Master, perfect for smaller wrists or women who want something sportier than the Lady Datejust. It has all the luxury features just in a compact format. Rolex Yacht Master 42mm. Introduced in white gold in 2019, this is the biggest Yacht Master yet. Paired with a black Oyster Flex strap and matte black bezel, it's sporty, stealthy, and way more subtle than gold on a bracelet. Rolex Sea Dweller two-tone. In 2019, Rolex did the unexpected and released a two-tone Sea Dweller. Hardcore divers were confused, but collectors saw it as a bold twist. The Tool watch went full flex. Rolex Submariner. Starbucks. The updated green bezel black dial combo released in 2020. Fans quickly dubbed it the Starbucks for its green-black theme. Bigger case, new movement, and modern styling. It's the Hulk's calmer, more balanced successor. Rolex Daytona Zenith. Era from 1988 to 2000, Rolex used modified Zenith El Primero movements in their Daytonas. This marked the start of the automatic Daytona era. These watches are now cult favorites and a bridge between vintage and modern. Rolex Daytona 16,520. The first automatic Daytona launched in 1988. Powered by Zenith, but heavily modified by Rolex. These Zenith Daytonas now command huge premiums, especially the early ones with the floating Cosmograph dial. Rolex Daytona 116520. Released in 2000, this was the first Daytona with an in-house movement. Stainless steel, no ceramic bezel yet. It became the watch to have in the 2000s and had absurd wait lists long before Rolex hype was mainstream. Rolex Daytona 116500LN. Introduced in 2016, this Daytona finally gave fans what they wanted. A ceramic bezel, black or white dial options, long wait lists. Instant classic. Still one of the hardest to get steel Rolexes. Rolex King Submariner? Not an official name, but collectors use it to describe rare submariners that were gifted to Middle Eastern royalty. Often engraved on the caseback or dial, adds mystique and value to an already legendary model. Rolex Saudi Day Dates. Many day dates were custom made for Saudi royalty with Arabic numerals and script. These dials are rare and highly collectible. Some are double signed with both Rolex and the Saudi emblem. Rolex Qaboos Sea Dweller, made for the Sultan of Oman in the 1970s. These watches feature unique casebacks or dials with Arabic script. Super limited, highly sought after by collectors of royal Rolexes. Rolex Middle East dials. Beyond Saudi and Oman models, Rolex made pieces for UAE, Bahrain, and other Gulf states, often featuring logos, falcons, or Arabic calendar scripts. These regional models are mysterious, rare, and command huge auction results. Rolex Arab Dial. Datejust regular Datejusts that feature Eastern Arabic numerals instead of standard ones. Subtle but exotic. For some collectors, it's a must-have piece of cultural fusion. Rolex Sigma Dial. Look for tiny Sigma TSWISS T Sigma. Markings at the bottom of the dial as it means the hour markers are made from solid gold. Sigma dials aren't rare, but they're a hidden gem. Little detail, big flex. Rolex Rail Dial. Found on some vintage Explorer 2s and Sea Dwellers, this term describes the equal spacing between superlative and chronometer text. Small print detail, but collectors go wild over it. Rolex Wide Boy. Dial used in vintage Datejusts and day dates with wide, chunky hour markers and thick hands. It's a look that screams 1970s. Big fonts, big personality. Rolex California Dial. Originally used on Panerai, some early Rolexes had California dials. A mix of Roman and Arabic numerals. Often seen on bubblebacks. Strange but iconic in vintage collecting circles. Rolex Tiffany Dial. Not an official model, but Rolex watches that were co-signed by Tiffany and Company on the dial. These were sold at Tiffany boutiques in the past. Now they're ultra rare and ultra expensive. Rolex Comex Submariner, made for the French diving company Comex. These subs featured special helium valves and Comex branding on the dial or caseback. Serious dive heritage. Serious collector hype. Rolex Red Submariner, one of the most iconic vintage subs, named for the red Submariner text on the dial. Produced in the late 60s and early 70s, a small line of red ink equals a big jump in value. Rolex Double Red Sea Dweller, like the red sub, but with 2 lines of red text. These early Sea Dwellers are serious grails. Military vibes, deep sea capabilities, and a dial that collectors obsess over. Rolex Nipple Dial GMTs, found on vintage gold GMTs, named for their raised hour markers that resemble, well, you get it. Love it or laugh at it, it's a real term. Pure 70s. Rolex Spider Dial Submariners. Not a design choice, a defect. Some Submariner dials from the 80s developed tiny cracks in the lacquer, creating a web-like pattern. Unintended but now beloved for its weird beauty. Rolex Tropical Dials. Dials that fade from black to brown due to sun exposure or age. A defect turned into desirable patina. No two are alike. Vintage watch magic. Rolex Frogfoot Crown, a nickname for a certain style of Rolex logo used on dials in the 60s. The crown looks stubby, like a frog's foot. It's these tiny details that send collectors down rabbit holes. Rolex Bart Simpson Crown. Another dial crown variation, this one has a short, squat look like Bart's spiky hair, usually found on mid-60s subs. Another quirk with a fan base. Rolex Ghost Bezel. Old aluminum bezels that fade into a pale gray or blue. No longer black but still beautiful, like a ghost of what the watch once was. Rolex Pumpkin Lume. Lume that's aged to an orange tone over time. Found on vintage watches. Not radioactive anymore, just cool. Looks like Halloween on your wrist. Rolex Snowflake Hands, usually associated with Tudor, Rolex's sister brand, but early Rolex military subs sometimes had square snowflake hands, rare crossovers that collectors dream of. Rolex Underline Dial, found on early 60s Rolexes, a small line beneath the text to signify tritium lume, often overlooked, now highly sought after. Rolex Rail Dial Milgauss. Same spacing trick as other rail dials, but on Milgauss models. Clean text layout equals collector obsession. Not rare, but noticeable to those in the know. Rolex Service Dial. Replacement dials added during servicing. Not original to the watch, but still made by Rolex. Some purists avoid them, others see them as history. Rolex Prototype Models. There are Rolex watches that never made it to production. Unique colors, dials, or case designs shown at Basel or tested internally. If you find one, you're holding history that was never meant to be worn.